discuss financial matters that will help you grow in your finances. We've had series of episodes, and the topic that we're going to be discussing today, it's not a new one. It's something that we have already been discussing, and that is budgeting. Oh my, here we go again, right? But I think this is the foundation. So we need to make sure that we get it right. We need to make sure that we give you enough tools so that way you are ready to grow into step 2, which is going to be the financial planning and so on. But right now we want to make sure that you have the foundation, that you have some key elements to work with, because next episode we're going to be talking about taxes. And I know how complicated taxes could be. I know that sometimes we have questions on how to make sure that I have enough funds to pay my taxes. Am I being deducted the right amount of taxes? So all those topics we're going to be discussing in one of the episodes that are going to be coming up. So let's get to the topic. What is to be financially grounded? I found a text that I liked, and the text that I'm going to read, it's taken from Job 31:6, and it says the following: "Let God weigh me with honest scales, that he may know my integrity." One of the hardest things that we encounter when we're doing our budgets is being truthful to ourselves. We like lying to ourselves on how much funds we have available. Sometimes we even try to avoid to even look at our bank account, and we just like sliding our credit card because we don't want to be accountable for our actions. And I like this verse that Job has the intention of saying, hey, you know what? I think I've done everything right. I think that I am ready to be tested. And we're not going to be talking about the life of Job or the context of that verse. But in general, Job was saying, hey, go ahead and test me because I'm ready. And that's where we need to be. We need to be in a moment of saying, my finances are in order. Let's go ahead and review them. I'm ready to see where is my money going. And that's what we're going to be talking today about, being financially grounded, being truthful to ourselves. So the first thing that we're gonna talk is step 1. Get a piece of paper, and we've done this exercise in a previous episode, but let's go ahead and get a piece of paper, because we need to make sure that this is interactive. We need to make sure that this is kind of like a lesson where you're hearing tips and you're actually hearing the advice and taking it in consideration. So there's nothing like grabbing a piece of paper and writing it down. You could use your computer if you want to, but the purpose is that you write it in. Now, this episode, it's being transmitted in our video platform and also in an audio platform. So those of you that are doing the video, you are going to see a lot of visual materials today that we're going to be relying. Those that are audio, you can go ahead and look us up on the video content. You're going to be able to see the links below. So that way you are able to see the examples that we're going to be presenting on this episode. Well, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to break out three general categories. Okay, so go ahead and divide your paper in 3. We want to make sure that you have 3 categories. It doesn't mean that those are the only 3 items that you have. It just means that for now, to make it easier and somewhere, because we're taking in consideration that you're not doing a budget right now, right? So if you're an advanced person that you already have done your budget many times before, maybe this is not going to be as useful. But those that are seeking to make a budget, let's scratch everything out and start from the ground. So let's divide our paper in 3. So we're just going to do 3 different categories. The first category that we're going to be is the monthly expenses in your household. What are your monthly expenses in your household? We're going to limit this category to the basics. So we're going to do rent or mortgage payment. We're going to do electricity or utility bills. And we're going to do food, which are kind of like the major components. Yes, you could have some other items in your household that you can customize, but make sure that everything related to household expenses are placed in this category. Don't add things that you sometimes buy in addition, for example, some household items, or you are planning to do a couch or planning to remodel. Those items, don't include them for the moment in this category. We want you to visualize how much do you need just to cover the basic expenses in your household. So we want to have that first category. The second category that we're going to have is how much are you saving? Do you even have a savings account? Don't worry about if you don't have one, because we're going to talk about that. But if you do, go ahead and write what is your monthly goal currently. So we're going to have category 2, which is going to be savings. And then the third category that we're going to write in that paper, it's going to be giving towards God or giving back to others. So we're going to have those 3 major categories. Now, let's work on the first category, which is going to be our monthly amounts. Now, these amounts are amounts that normally are fixed amount, Normally we'll have, yes, a change in utilities, $10, $20 more. In the summer, sometimes we can even have $100 more due to having an air conditioner on versus a heater. So I understand that it could fluctuate, but if you have an idea of what is your average, go ahead and place that average in that section. So that way you can start understanding what are your core expenses for your monthly. You'll be surprised that maybe when you add them up, 50% of your salary, it's already compromised towards your home. It should be less, but it could be that right now you're at 50, 60%. So you want to make sure what percentage of your income is going towards maintaining your home. Now, the other item, savings. This is an item that currently it comes up quite frequently. How do I save? Because most of my expenses are dedicated in the household items. So after considering or after analyzing expense versus income, I have very little left to even save or even considering saving. Now, if you see these 3 categories, I intentionally left the fun or the recreational section, because that section should not be considered until you have the foundation. It doesn't mean that it cannot come up and be a 4th category, but for the moment, you need to focus only in those 3 areas. Now, savings. How disciplined are you into savings? One thing that I've seen that it works is to have a separate bank account, one that you currently don't have access and one that you're not seeing very often, or you don't have access to that account to withdraw funds. Why is it that important? Because let's say, and I'm going to give you a tool that you can utilize. Now we have a variation of tools that are available for us. So one of them is, I'm sure that you've heard about artificial intelligence, and one very effective tool that we're not affiliated and we're not advertising, but it is a very effective tool, and that is ChatGPT. We're going to go ahead and show on our screen ChatGPT. So you're going to type that in your browser, and once you are in that website, it has a section for you to add a question or instructions. The instructions that we're going to give is calculate how much I need to save per pay period if my goal is to save $500 in a year. Okay? Don't hit enter yet. That is the first part of the instructions. The second part of the instructions, it's you need to give the instructions on how many pay periods do you receive funds in a year. It could be that you are paid once a month, you're paid bi-weekly, you're paid by monthly, you're paid, whatever the instructions are, you need to write down. Considering I get paid 26 pay periods in a year, considering I get paid 12 pay periods in a year, considering I get 52 payments in a year of whatever the amount. So that way it could let you know, once you have that information, go ahead and hit enter and it'll calculate based on your goal and based on the weeks that you're being paid. You should be saving this amount per week. Now you have a number in mind. Now you know the instructions. So what I would say is start with a low amount. Don't get ambitious if this is your first, if it's your first budget that you are putting together. Why? Because if your finances right now are out of control, you can't get them in control like in a second. Unless, maybe you are like very disciplined and you're thinking, I'm going to do this and I'm going to stick to the plan, it could work. But my advice is to slowly transition so that way you can start getting used to having less money per paycheck. So go ahead and open that bank account. I would highly suggest that you open a secondary bank account, one that you don't have access or one that you're not going to be tempted to withdraw funds immediately. That way, in this secondary account, you are going to give instructions. A lot of employers give you the ability to split your payment into different bank accounts. If you have that ability, go ahead and set it up with your employer and say, is this possibility, is this available as a benefit as an employer? It could be as an employee, I'm sorry. It could be that you have not realized that's a benefit that you have, or that's a possibility of distributing your paycheck. And if it is, it's for your advantage. That way, you're automatically going to start living with less amount each pay period because a portion is going to go to your savings. And you can, in the long run, I want to save 10,000. You could even put a goal. It's very hard to make long-term goals. Why? Because we are in a generation that want everything instantly. So we think 10 years, when are the 10 years going to be over? I want to save 10,000 in 10 years. That's like a long time for now. By the time that I raise 10,000, I'm not going to be able to utilize or even that 10,000, it's going to have the same value that it has right now and so on. So we start questioning. And that's why sometimes we don't make plans on the long term. But make sure that you have that goal. Once you start with the goal, it is easier to increase the amount than, again, to start from zero. So make sure that you have the short-term plan, saving 1,500 a year, long-term saving 5,000 or 10,000 in 10 years. Whatever your goal is, make sure that you have a clear understanding of where you're heading. The third item that we have on our page is going to be giving. Why is it important to give? Sometimes we forget that at the beginning we had zero. And then all of a sudden we receive a blessing, we give to others, we bless others, we support ministry, we support nonprofits, we support those that are around us. And that gives us a sense of ownership and a sense of belonging, that we are doing something for the benefit of others rather from ourselves. We tend to give to other groups sometimes when we feel that there's a connection, and that connection grows as we are taking an initiative supporting a mission. So whatever entity that you give, make sure that you understand what is their mission and why you're giving towards that mission, to support the growth of that mission, because that should be your purpose, that you want to make sure that you give to God as a blessing or as a return to a blessing received, and also because you are also supporting the mission of a certain nonprofit organization. So those are the three categories that we currently have in our page. So now let's go to step 2. Now that we have a clear understanding of how our expenses in a year made up, or in a week or in a month, however you structure your budget, we need to make sure that we ask ourselves the following question: how much am I hiding expenses? That is a really difficult question to answer. And what do I mean with hidden expenses? Well, how many times in a month do you go and grab coffee? How many times in a month do you go ahead and buy a new pair of shoes? How many times do you stop by a certain one of these big stores and just pick up something randomly? Those are the hidden expenses that are not part of your budget, yet they're hurting you. And that is the part that we need to bring our honesty out. We need to make sure that we track down, okay, this month I'm going to make sure that I save my receipts. Well, sometimes saving the receipts, it's also really hard. So I have a suggestion for you. Another thing that you could do is you can utilize these platforms that are useful for the management of your finances. One of these tools is QuickBooks. It is something that is available. Another one is Rocket. This is an app that you can manage through your phone. Another one is Quick and Simplify. And like this, there are many other platforms available. There's many. If you do the research, you'll find a lot of them, different price range, different abilities to track different expenses. But make sure that you have a platform where you track your expenses. If you want to track them in Excel spreadsheet, if you want to track them by hand, if you want to track them through a computer software, those are all things that are available. But make sure that you're tracking the expenses, because you did all the work of laying the foundation of your monthly budget. Now you need to make sure that you're accountable to that plan, and that if you have a budget of whatever the amount is, that you are staying within that budget. And the only way is that you're able to see the numbers. If you're not seeing the numbers, how do you know that you're accountable to the budget that you did? When you have the less amount of funds available to spend, it's when you have to be the most dedicated to track your budget. Debt will create, this kind of snowball that it grows. And just like the cartoons, it starts with a small snowball and it starts getting bigger and bigger, and it gets to a point that it just gets out of control. So it is never a bad time to start. It is always the right moment to take the right decision, to start the budget. So you're tracking the expenses through a platform and you're being honest with yourself. But unfortunately, for one expected reason, you are right now in a debt and you're thinking, well, I do want to start over, but I'm already in a debt. So what do I do? So let's go back to our example to ChatGPT. ChatGPT can do an analysis of a lot of options that are available for you. One of the options that I want to talk today is you have a big debt and you receive these credit card offers where it says you can do a transfer for a 5% of your balance and in a 0 interest rate for the following 12 months, right? So you want to write the following prompt in ChatGPT. I have a debt that I would like to pay down. These are my 2 options available. I want you to give me a comparison so I can see which 2 options, from the 2 options, which one is the best, right? Option number 1 is to pay $20,000, let's put a number, $20,000 in 12 months, or you can even do 24 months, depending on the offer that you're receiving. Let's take 12 months for this scenario. And $20,000, pay it off in 12 months at a 22% interest rate, right? That's normally where credit cards are right now. It could be anywhere from 22 to higher. So let's take a baseline of 22. And then you're going to keep on writing, and you're going to say scenario or option number 2 is to take a loan from a credit card that's offering me 5% from the total amount to be transferred, and a 0% at a 0% rate for the following 12 months, and calculate monthly payments, right? So it's going to now give you a chart of what option is better. It's going to give you the option. If you were to pay down that debt in 12 months, this is going to be your amount of interest that you're going to be paying versus this other option. So you want to make sure that you compare and you see, and because when we see it, when we get this offer, sometimes we think, well, I don't think this is a good offer. But are you actually analyzing the place that you are right now? You want to make sure that you create a clear start over, because a clear start over, it is possible. You just need to take the right steps and the correct tools to get out of debt. Never be afraid of understanding your finances and see how to get out of debt. There's always a way that you can get out of debt, but it will require sacrifice. It will require discipline. It will require that you set up a very tight budget and that you keep yourself accountable to that budget. As we are seeing all these items, we tend to ask a question: am I being a good steward of the funds that I have been entrusted? That is a question that you should ask yourself. Am I being a good steward? Please help me, God, because we can also go to God in prayer. Give me the knowledge, give me the understanding so that I can be a better steward of my finances. We all have the intention of being a better financially. We want to make sure that we create good financial habits, and sometimes we need help, and help is available. Make sure to reach out. Make sure to go ahead and see all the resources are available. Thank you so much for being with us today. It was great having this conversation, and see you in our next episode. Goodbye.